Good afternoon, and welcome to the last Tuesday where we talk about things that might happen instead of some things that actually have happened, maybe. Gabe, DeArmond, Jarod Hamilton here. We are getting close to the time where we're going to do this weekly. Not quite yet, but we'll have a show this week, have a show at some point next week, and then early August when Missouri starts football camp, we will go full time. But Jarod headed to SEC Media Days next Sunday for – I don't know how else to put it except the most overhyped and overanalyzed 3 days in all of sports.
I'm just looking forward to going to Nashville. I'm just looking forward to going to Nashville. Obviously, I'm gonna do some work, see what I can get into. But I'm just thinking about what food places can I try in Nashville that I haven't tried before. So, yeah, it's a big week, but it is. I don't understand. Like, I do know why it's bigger than all the other media days, but at the same time, they're relatively the same. It's really just the teams and the location and all that, but
also, I mean, it just means more. Like that's
yeah.
you know?
I remember so this is going to be my third one in a row, and when I went as an intern, the amount of times I heard that tagline is like,
Yeah.
it's a staple in my brain. If somebody said that for any context in the world that isn't football, I'd immediately still think they're talking about the SEC. Like, that's how much they use this phrase.
Well, here's the only phrases you're going to hear more over your time there: we and us, and how the guy's looking. The coach, we just want to know, man, how we looking this year? How many games we going to win? How the boys doing?
No, brother.
Because it's honestly it's like it's a light version of Super Bowl media day where like it's become this caricature of itself where they will, like, I promise you, if you were watching the show, and if you're watching, feel free, comments, questions, whatever you got. We don't really have a plan what we're going to talk about, so anything you guys want to talk about. But if you were watching this show, if you apply for a credential from the SEC office for media days, you will probably get in. Just be like, my third grader has a class project due and he wants to write about SEC media days. That kid is going to get a credential. He's going to be able to ask Nick Saban a question if he wants, because they let absolutely anybody in so that when the week's over, they can go, well, we had 977,000 media members here. Look how popular we are, man.
Oh, brother. Yeah. I mean, the only something I authentically like, besides, whatever foods in the area, is I like hearing the storylines from other teams. I mean, I'm just going to be there, for Monday. So what's that? LSU and who else?
A&M.
A&M. So, like, it'll be interesting to hear what other teams got going on, because believe it or not, we cannot follow every team and what the details of everything going on in their program. So that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, as far as Missouri goes, they announced yesterday, it's Chris Abrams-Drain, Javon Foster, Darius Robinson, three guys who are good players who Eli Drinkwitz completely trusts with a microphone in front of their face not to say anything stupid. I mean, that's really the qualifications for going to SEC Media Days. Be a player somebody has heard of, and be usually as boring as you can possibly be, so that we do not provide anybody on our schedule any bulletin board material.
Yeah, the group is at least two of them, D-Rob and Foster, were like, I seen them. KAD's an interesting one, and he's interesting because he may not say much, but I remember when we asked about his draft grade, like, he just came right out with it. And so I wonder, like, what do we have to do to get something out of him?
Well, and here's what I found, because I talked to Chris for the podcast we were doing for a while with the NIL Collective, and one-on-one, he was actually pretty good. It's just when you put these 20-year-old kids up behind a microphone, behind a table with like 30 people staring at them, they are far less engaging and they say far less. I mean, Darius Robinson has a really good personality. He'll be probably Missouri's kind of standout there, other than, like, with Missouri, the players don't have to have the personality because the coach is the one that's going to say something that makes the headlines. I mean, like, I think he will go in trying to be kind of toned down and boring, but there's going to be at least one or two times he just can't help himself and he fires off a one-liner at somebody.
Yeah, I expect it. What that will be, I don't know, but I hope it's something interesting. Maybe a jab at one of their opponents this year, so everybody's hair can get on fire.
Yeah, he usually likes to make an Arkansas comment or something about the South Carolina series, something like that, you know. But overall, hey, he's good for headlines. I mean, the thing about media days is nothing that anybody wants answers to can possibly be answered next week, right? I mean, so what are you going down there kind of thinking, hey, these are the things that are at least worth asking these guys about and get some insight on?
Well, I guess for the players they have, I guess for let's start with D-Rob, just kind of more on the if he's starting at defensive end thing or if he's going to stay at defensive tackle. I know he's going to play both regardless of where he starts, but just trying to gauge exactly how serious is that him starting at defensive end talks with Chris Abrams-Drain. I think a question, and if Ennis was here, I'd ask it to him too, is will the cornerbacks have an elevated responsibility? Because I feel like defensive ends and cornerbacks, they kind of go together. You get that pass rush going. Corners don't have to cover as long. If you don't have that pass rush going, corners obviously have to do a little bit more work. So, has there been talks? We were going to need such and such to step up more on the back line, and then with Javon Foster, it's while the offensive line as a unit is a team, it still feels like as long as you handle your part, that's it, because you can't work. There's no way you can help what's going on anywhere else. It's just really you. So with Javon, it's just kind of he's got to be able to stack his 2021 season. I think where he was like top 3 in run blocking last year. I think he was top 3 in pass blocking. If he can mold that into one, so probably just a little bit more on what the offensive line needs to do and how he can kind of put it all together for himself.
So the Robinson and defensive end thing is interesting to me because we're both Kansas City Chiefs fans. And look, I am in no way saying that Darius Robinson is Chris Jones. I don't think Darius is like one of the 3 best defensive tackles in all of college football or anything, but he's a good defensive tackle. So a couple years ago, this kind of happened where the Chiefs took Chris Jones and said, hey, we don't really have anybody on the outside, so we're going to move him outside and play him outside a lot. Well, it didn't really work. Like he was okay at defensive end, but being okay at defensive end was so much less valuable than being great at defensive tackle. So, I mean, do you look at this Robinson thing more as, hey, we have enough defensive tackles so we can move Robinson out? Or is it, we don't really know if we have any defensive ends, so we're going to have to move Robinson out?
Both. I mean, the luxury of having your top 5 defensive tackles, I don't know how often that happens at any position, especially with the transfer portal, but having your top 5, they're a little bit more comfortable if they put someone else in D-Rob's place and having them move outside. And then also Johnny Walker, they like him. He'll probably be, at least for now, he'll probably be one. They kind of like, I'd say their group feels like a good bench depth, but it doesn't seem like there's a starter that if we were talking about these guys and saying, oh, this is the bench and then we got such and such, they feel a lot better about it. So this is where D-Rob comes in on the outside where it's like, it's a win for everybody. We could use you here at defensive end and see what you got, and maybe you can help us there. And also D-Rob for himself, he's told me to the side, I just want to show NFL teams that I can do that if need be. So it seems like a win-win for everybody, but I wonder how long the experiment will go.
Well, and I look at defensive end, and hey, they got 6 guys at least that can play, but like you said, you don't really know. I mean, out of those 6, 2 are gonna start, but do they have Isaiah McGuire on this team? Do they even have DJ Coleman on this team? I'm not sure we know that yet.
Yeah, and they're going to need Darius Robinson. Even if it's at defensive tackle, he's going to have to be as important to this defensive line as Isaiah McGuire was last year. Like he's going to have to make things shake no matter where he lines up.
And so the thing with Robinson to me is wherever he lines up, I want to see where he's at on the first 3rd down against Kansas State on September 16th, because that's where they think he's more valuable, right? I mean, like he can play. I don't care. He'd stand up and play linebacker for the first 2 weeks if he wants. That's not really going to tell me a lot. But when you come down to, okay, we got to have a play, where are you putting him and who's that defensive end? And again, like like I said, none of these questions are getting answers till September 16th, which kind of leads me to the other thing that I've kind of started thinking about a lot more over the last month. So Missouri starts with 2 games that, look, if they lose either of the first 2 games, then this season's not going to be very good. I mean, you're not going to lose to either South Dakota or Middle Tennessee and go win 8 games. It's not going to happen. So what do you think the chances are that we don't really know who Missouri's starting quarterback is until September 16th against Kansas State?
40%.
Yeah. I'm starting to think that's the route. I think the first 2 weeks are like a tryout.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if whether they give one person one game and the other person the other game, or if they do it by halves. So somebody gets the first half of game 1, someone gets the second half, or whatever. And that's assuming that they've got it down to 2, where they just kind of like, this guy is going to be,
right,
the backup. So I don't know. It doesn't sound like a good idea though.
I think you have to have it down to 2 though, because like if you remember last year, like people kept asking about Tyler Macon, and Drink kept saying, "Look, guys, I don't have time during the week to get 3 guys first team reps. Like it can't. You've got to identify 2 guys." So I think he's going to have 2. I'll be a little bit surprised if it's not Brady Cook and Sam Horn, but then again, I don't know. You brought Jake Garcia in for some reason, right? So, and I don't think he came here thinking, hey, I'm good being the 3rd stringer. But I think what we're going to get throughout the entire month of August is Eli Drinkwitz like coming up and starting out his press conferences by saying, we don't know who the starting quarterback is, and even if I did, I wouldn't tell you. And like, I don't think he's going to tell us the week of the first game. And then I think he's going to play somebody. And I think we see 2 quarterbacks in that first week at a bare minimum.
I don't know. Like I said, that's the reason I say I have it at 40% is I still feel like he may stretch it out, of course, a lot longer than last year, like 8-9 days. I think maybe he stretches it out to week and a half before week 1, maybe, or something like that. And then he announces, because I feel like maybe that's some internal thing where everybody got to know who the leader is, who the guy is, and they start trying to build their chemistry with said person, or, commit to that one person all the way. But it could very well go the way you just said.
So a week before the first game would be August 24th. I would be willing to bet that by August 24th, Eli Drinkwitz has not told us this is my starting quarterback. Now, he may have told his team, but he ain't going to tell us. I think he is going to go into, because all coaches like to play games like this, but he has shown a penchant for playing these games. Like, somewhere in their heads, he believes if Chris Kleiman does not know which quarterback is taking the first series, that gives his team a competitive advantage. Now, I think whether it does or not is completely debatable. But these coaches think it does. Like, I think we're going to go into that game against Kansas State in week 3 not 100% sure who's taking the first snap, unless somebody's gotten hurt.
Yeah. It can go either way. It really can.
Yeah. It'll and there's so much focus on quarterback, and I get it. And I honestly, I don't think we're making too much of this. I really do think it is just so far and away the number one question on this team. Like, there are other questions, but if he doesn't get quarterback right this year, none of those other questions matter.
Yeah, that's about right. That's exactly what it's going to be. If the quarterback is, if it's not where it needs to be, then what I keep thinking about when I think about the offense is just like quarterback, offensive line play, that matters so much. But with that wide receiver group, there's a lot of potential there for this to be like a really good group. But you can't see it if something falls through the cracks with either of those positions. That line is just as bad as last year, to be honest. It doesn't really matter how great the wide receiver room, because they can only, do so much if they have to, wait for the line and quarterback and all that. Same thing with the QBs.
I think wide receiver is the most interesting position on this team, maybe because I think a lot of people are just assuming, hey, it's going to be great because 4 years ago, this guy was a 5-star and this guy was a 4-star and this guy was a 5-star. That's all well and good, but they don't have a single guy on this team who's had 600 yards receiving in a season. like at some point, and look, Luther Burden's only been in college 1 year, right? Mookie Cooper's never really been healthy. So these guys still could live up to those rankings. I'm just saying that at some point, like what they were ranked 3 and 4 years ago don't really matter.
Yeah, but the feeling that I got, when talking to some people during the camps and stuff like that is, I think they're most happy about the pieces they have for the parts they need for the position to play. Last year, it seemed like they was trying to put a square peg in a round hole. They had so many slot guys playing, and they had them playing out of position at times. Like Luther playing on the outside, everybody knew from week one that is not where he's supposed to be, but he's the most talented. So, and here we're going to play him. He's a 5-star guy, so let's put him out there. Now they feel like they got a person who can play outside. We got a person who can play the slot. We got a person who can play both. So they feel like they have those pieces. So, yeah, they need to produce, obviously, but I feel like they're just happy that they got the right, puzzle pieces.
I also think it's at the college level an incredibly replaceable position, meaning like somebody's going to catch passes. If you block well, you give them 5 seconds. Most college DBs can't cover anybody for 5 seconds, So if you're a representative Division I wide receiver, like I'm not sure the personnel matters quite as much there as it does, say, at offensive, defensive line, and quarterback, and probably even DB.
Right.
So again, want to invite you guys to ask any questions you've got. And Turner wants to know if they'll finally beat Kentucky. Look, they did in the COVID year. They beat Kentucky, actually, kind of dominated them. But I was texting with a friend of mine that covers South Carolina this morning. He was kind of asking how I thought Missouri was going to be, and I said I think they'll be maybe a little better than people are predicting, but I don't think they're going to be like win the division or anything. And he said, well, I know they'll beat South Carolina because that's what they do. And I said, and they'll lose to Kentucky because that's what they do. That's just like, those are 2 annual traditions in Mizzou football. But like this season, again, I did kind of a game by game thing on Monday morning. And I mean, if you take Kansas State, Florida, Arkansas, Kentucky, South Carolina, that's the season right there. Those 5 games are the difference between, honestly, like 4-8 and 9-3.
Yeah. And I was telling you beforehand, so I guess, can I give them a little preview of what I'll drop tomorrow, or should I just save it?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
So
man.
Going forward, I'll start something called.
Nobody that's on here is reading all that anyway. So yeah.
I'm gonna start something called 4 Down Territory. So it's 10 thoughts, but it's 4. Obviously, it's 10 thoughts, but it's 4, and it's obviously be about Mizzou football, college football, and then the last thing be a little bit of wild card, whatever I want to talk about. And so I did kind of a schedule breakdown, and same thing for you. I was kind of breaking down each game just a little bit, maybe a graph or so. And when going back to Kentucky, it's not the same swing game because last year the offensive line for Kentucky was kind of in shambles. Like It was a rough year for them. They've got some reinforcements coming back. They've got Devin Leary, who a couple years ago was like one of the best QBs in the nation. And then they got a 1,000-yard rusher from Vandy and Ray Davis coming in to replace Chris Rodriguez. So those spots where you would think, oh man, they're hurt, they're not that bad in. So they're going to actually be a tougher team. Something I do think Missouri can pull off, but I still have as a loss for right now, was the K-State game, because they lost a lot of talent on defense. They lost their QB1, running back 1, and their wide receiver 1. So there's a lot of things, going on there. But until I know who the quarterback is going to be, I'm going to just count that as a loss for now. I need to see who the quarterback is, how they play those first 2 games. But like you said, those was it 5 or 6 games, those swing games?
5 games, yeah.
5 games, yeah. That's the season right there, and they at least need to go 3-2, 4-1.
Yeah, because I think you go into the season going realistically. All right, South Dakota, Middle Tennessee, Memphis, and Vandy. Those are wins. I mean, there are worlds where you can lose one of those games, but most cases those are wins. Georgia, Tennessee, LSU, realistically, those are probably losses. I mean, could Missouri win one? Of course they could. That's why they played. But so you're starting out with the baseline of 4-3, and then you've got those 5 games. If you somehow win every swing game, 9-3. If you somehow lose everyone, 4-8. I mean, that's the ceiling and the floor to me of this team.
Yeah, that's about right.
So 3-2 would put you 7-5, which is what I think. I think
Yeah.
that's at least. I think that's the line where people go, okay, like, look, obviously you want better, but at 7-5, I don't think there's going to be it's tangible progress from last year. It's finally over 500 in the regular season. It means you would have won probably 3 of those games we're talking about, like maybe with a first-year starting quarterback. I mean, there's some things to feel good about at 7-5. Less than that means you went sub 500 in those 5 games we're talking about, and that's when I think people get real restless come the weekend after Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Every time I look at the schedule, it's like I have a new prediction. Like when I first seen the schedule, I was thinking it could be 8-4, and then teams started making their moves in the transfer portal, all that good stuff. And then I was thinking, 6-6. I'm at 7-5 right now, and like I said with the K-State thing, they could go 8-4 if they win that game. However, they could very easily go 6-6, and let's say, because I'm giving them the game at Arkansas. Like that's kind of my thing. That was my last game to give them a win. So, and they could very well lose that. That's going to be on the road. Not that that's mattered the past 6 or 7 years. They're 6-1, but it's still a road game. It's after Thanksgiving. All types of stuff could be going on.
Well, and I think like anytime I do any sort of prediction thing this early, it's always I always say like I don't know what Missouri or Kentucky is going to look like in mid-October, right? So picking that game individually, I don't know, but the way the schedule breaks down is pretty interesting because I look at it and I go, okay, after LSU comes here in week 6, and like we're expecting Missouri to be 4-2, probably maybe 5-1 after that game, whatever they are. But then the next 2 games are at Kentucky and South Carolina here. And I almost, anytime I'm doing a prediction, I just look at those 2 and go, I think they're going to split them. Like if they go win at Kentucky, I can see them kind of maybe having a letdown. But if they go lose at Kentucky and then they come here having to beat South Carolina, I think that happens. So I almost look at those 2 games as a set, right? And then the next set is at Georgia and home against Tennessee. And you just go, I don't know if you can find a way to even if you could somehow find a way to win one of those, you're going to probably have a good season. And then the last 2 weeks of the season are so interesting because were they at Florida last year?
Yeah, it was at Florida last year.
So it's Florida here and then at Arkansas are the last 2 games of the season. And like the reason it's so stupid to predict those is, well, what if Missouri's 7-3 at that point? And, they've beaten Tennessee. Well, then they're really playing for something. But what if they come into that stretch at 4-6 or 5-5 and you're going, well, best they can do is, the Music City Bowl and who knows what the hell. I mean, there's just so much to happen between now and then that picking a game in November is like, I know why we do it because we have to do it and people demand it, but it's pointless. I have no idea what's going to happen then.
Yeah, take the predictions with a grain of salt, guys. But at least for my Florida, yeah. But for the Florida game, I guess a reason I can give him that before we get too deep into the season is it's going to be a home game for Missouri. It's obviously probably going to be a lot chillier than it is in Florida. Florida, that game will be in between a game versus LSU and Florida State for Florida. So 2 big games for the Gators there. That could be kind of like a trap game type of situation for them. It's just, like I said, late in the season. That's going to be a blackout game for Missouri. So there's a lot of not that important, but some things that can go in their favor.
Going to be a blackout game for a lot of Florida fans if Missouri wins it. But I mean, Florida fans will look at it the way you're talking about, right? We got a big game against LSU and a big game against Florida State around this nothing game against Missouri. Truthfully, where Florida's program is at, they should look at it the exact opposite. All right, LSU is going to kick our ass. Florida State's probably going to kick our ass. That Missouri game's a big game. We best go get a win in Columbia. I mean, that's how they should look at it. But look, I know they won't. We'll take a few questions here, kind of on the back half. Kyle wants to know any idea how Kirby Moore's offense will differ from Drink's. I mean, No. Did you? I mean, Jarod, I wasn't at spring football at all because I was covering basketball. Did you see any, like, was there anything you were able to see in spring football that would give you any sort of an indication as to how to answer that question?
Not really, and there's a few reasons why. So the first reason why is during spring ball, like a big thing that seemed to center around the offense was snapping the center. Like there were bad snaps in scrimmage, like a good amount where it was too high, too low. It was a lot of swing passes, and overall the defense on the spring game scrimmage, whatever you want to call it, the defense was dominating. Like it wasn't really that close because the defense that has 8 returning starters, if you want to add Dalen Carnell, who almost played half the snaps, 9 guys out there who know exactly what they're doing. And they got Tristan Newsom and Trevez Johnson also out there. Like, it wasn't really something where you can see the offense on display.
And the other thing to remember, correct me if I'm wrong, Brady Cook's not participating in spring drills. By that point, Sam Horn, I think, was hurt. He wasn't throwing. So
yeah, so
we haven't seen Missouri's offense.
So it was Jake Garcia, who had at that point been there 2
month and a half, 2
months, 2.5, something like that. So he's been there a couple months, and then you got Dylan Leibel, who had a good spring camp, but I don't want that to be maybe misconstrued, at least at this moment, as like he's vying for the starting spot or something like that. But he had a really good, probably had the best spring camp of the available quarterbacks at that point, and still couldn't really see much because of how well the defense was playing.
Yeah, and so the ultimate answer is we don't know. I mean, I'm sure, but also, like, I don't think Kirby Moore is coming in here and just changing everything, right? I think he probably has a lot of similar ideas to Eli Drinkwitz, and Eli Drinkwitz is still going to be involved in this offense. Now, Kirby Moore is going to be the play caller, but it's not as if Eli Drinkwitz has just said, "It's yours, man. Go to town. I'm out." I mean, that's not going to happen.
Right. Yeah. He runs a similar spread like offense that Drink was running. So it's not, here's a new person with a whole new scheme running. Yeah. Like, no, that's not what's going on. It's a guy who kind of runs similar things. They want to get their receivers out in space, spread the ball around and get the ball out quicker and things of that nature. But it's not too different. But we're not really going to be able to tell until the season starts because of how spring ball went, and obviously off season, all that. They're not going to show us too much in the 45 minutes of practice we get to look at. So.
And also, like, I'm not going to put any stock in anything they say because, like, the whole thing last year was, yeah, we got to take more chances. We got to throw the ball around, cut it loose, throw the ball downfield. And then it was just Cody Schrader up the middle, Brady Cook run, swing pass to Luther. Like, and I understand why that's what it was. That's what they could do. Like, I'm not blaming Eli Drinkwitz, but I'm just saying I'm not going to put a whole lot of stock in the off-season talk because I have to see it happen on the field.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know how many times I told you about that pistol single back version, that halfback dive.
You knew what was coming.
You knew what was coming, and you knew how many yards it was going to get. Not enough.
Exactly. So speaking of which, Jovan wants to know who will be the better or the starting running back.
Okay, I'm sorry. You guys hear the people outside cutting grass?
I heard something. Yeah.
Cutting grass outside my apartment. So who'll be the better running back? I guess there's a few ways I can answer this. Who will be starting? Cody Schrader. Who's the
leading rusher on this team from the running back position?
Cody Schrader. He's still going to be a leading rusher. Who has the most upside, I guess? From, like, not now, but he's going to get there with a high ceiling? Probably Roberts, the 3-star signee. Who is going to be number 2 still, though? I'd say Pete. And as long as he doesn't have the same situations last year with the fumbling or just a lot of the negative yardage type things, if he just stays steady, he'll hold on to that. But, it could be a late surge from Roberts. And then Tavoris Jones isn't out the picture. They're just really impressed by what Roberts has done and then having those 2 veterans at the top of the depth chart.
So, look, Eli trusts Cody Schrader, I think, more than any player on his team. he's going to be the starter. I would be shocked if he does not have the most carries. I will be displeased if we do not see meaningful carries for Tavoris Jones and Jamal Roberts this year, because after this season, those are the only 2 scholarship running backs on the roster. Cody Schrader cannot come back. Nate Pete cannot come back. One of those 2 guys needs to be in line to be the starter. And look, I will say, if Tavoris Jones does not get meaningful carries this year, then like if you can't get on the field at running back, then you were misevaluated as a 4-star in 2 years. I mean, I'm not saying he has to lead the team in rushing, but like he has to have meaningful snaps on this team. If he does not get meaningful snaps on this team, I don't think it's ever going to happen, because it's not like Missouri has a standout star running back. It's the easy. I mean, coaches will tell you it is the easiest position to step in day one and play. So if Tavoris Jones is as good as we said he was, as good as they say he is, then he has to see the field this year.
Yeah, and it's going to be a little different than last year, how they were sprinkling in why is it the guy who went to West for Eli? I can't. Why is it slipping my mind right now? Number 4. I can't.
Elijah Young.
Yeah, there we go. How they kind of gave him spot carries. I feel like it's going to be an uptick from that because, like you said, 2 guys who are not going to be there next year. And yeah, I expect like Tavoris Jones, he needs to get carries, or it may be a quarterback situation where, I mean, why is he going to stick around if they think they can bring in a transfer, or they have this 3-star guy that they already like, who possibly could really step in and start.
Yeah. Kyle wants to know, who's your breakout player this year, like Dominic Lovett was last year, and either side of the ball. Pick one.
Oh, that's a good question. Breakout.
I mean, like, there's a simple answer here. It's Luther Burden. Like, because
no, he doesn't.
I understand why that's too easy of an answer, but like, I don't look at last year and think he broke out, really. I mean, I know he had 9 touchdowns, but like, there's a lot more there. If you're looking for a guy that's a lot better this year than he was last year, it's Burden, but he was a starter last year, so maybe that's cheating.
It's hard for me to say it because you just know that they're going to have a lot more going to him. They're going to find a lot more ways to get the ball in his hands. He's going to be in a position on the field where he's actually comfortable in the slot. It feels like cheating picking him. Here's what I can't really answer that yet, but here's what I will say. If he was to ask Missouri who they would want to be their breakout player, Sam Horn.
Yeah.
Like if they can pick a person who they want to break out, it's a quarterback, and particularly the 4-star super athletic one. But it's hard to pick who I think.
Last one, let me give you one that I think Missouri needs it to be. Cameron Johnson. Like, they need to figure out center. Yeah. They need to solidify a rotation on that offensive line. I don't really care if it's Xavier Delgado or EJ Ndoma Ogar at guard, whatever, if Marcellus Johnson is the right tackle or Armand Mimbo is. Like, if they are taking Johnson, who is a good tackle, and playing him at a new position, at least last we knew that's the plan. Now, maybe Eli will tell you something different.
Wait, you talking about Cameron?
Cameron Johnson. Yeah.
Guard. He was playing guard.
He was a guard, right. Yep. And now he's going to center. My bad. But like, if you can get that position figured out, then the other pieces you kind of can move around and just get your 5 best guys on the field. If they discover this summer, like, yo, Cameron Johnson is struggling with this whole moving to center thing, that like, you want something that nobody's talking about that can derail the season, there's your thing.
Yes. So Connor Tolson, obviously he started. He would, if you really needed a center that bad,
I assume he'd be the guy.
Yeah, they put him back in there, but he still has to put on the weight. That will always be the biggest thing for him. Until he can put on that weight, I feel like that's the first part that they feel like they've got to, kind of fix. So they feel like he's their backup center for now. But if Cameron has to move to guard, because he still will probably be one of your best 5, offensive linemen. If you got to move him to left guard, think about trying, early in the season saying EJ or Xavier or somebody, you've got to learn how to play center. That's not what you want to do.
Maybe they could do like I used to do in the street with my buddies growing up. Like there's just an all-time center, right? Just one guy snaps the ball for. So like whoever plays center for the other team, they're like, "Yo, can we just put a jersey on that guy can snap for us
all
too?"
time? Yeah. Oh man, it's been a minute since I heard that. But when I was doing the series on the offensive, the interior offensive line, I said this is not Madden. This isn't just put the best players, the best overall, no matter what their position is, and kind of just slot them where you want it to be. In real life, it actually matters that, you play right tackle, you play left tackle, you play center, you play guard. Like, that's a thing. And so they better hope it's right and hope that, Cameron can easily adjust to that.
Yeah. Got a question about DJ Wesolak and whether he's I'm pretty sure he's a linebacker. That's where he warmed up during the season last year. I don't know if that was different during spring football.
I think he's a linebacker. I'm going to be honest. Have not heard a thing about DJ. I just don't remember hearing anything. He's always a different position, which if you guys have read anything, I'll sometimes forget.
It's like Jamari and Wayne. We gotta go back and look and figure out which side of the ball he's playing every week.
Gabe, if we look through our messages, there's probably like 4 or 5 messages like, is Wesolak or Wayne this or that? Because I feel on their website it says this, but in the press conference it's this. I don't know. But has there been any buzz? Not really, to be honest. I mean, I think he's a linebacker. He's like 6'3", 240-ish, so he should be with the linebackers based off his, physical, features or whatever. But I haven't heard much, and that linebacker group is, if he is a part of it, it's a pretty deepish group, so it'd be hard for him to get on the field as of now. Obviously, fall camp can change things.
Well, and the other thing, has there been any buzz? I mean, like we were talking about this before we started the show. Guys, we haven't talked to Eli Drinkwitz since the first week in March, maybe earlier than that. We've talked to Kirby Moore, twice ever? We haven't talked to Blake Baker since early in spring football. Like, I don't know what buzz there's not really that much buzz about anybody. I mean, unless you just happen to be, and I just peek behind the curtain, like we aren't bugging people in like mid-June and saying, hey, who looks good in spring workout? Like there's going to be times where we got to kind of annoy these guys and ask questions. Mid-June ain't the time to fire bullets you're going to need later by annoying people. So, and also I don't really care who looks good in mid-June. It doesn't really matter. I care far more who looks good in mid-August when we can actually see some things. So my point is, just because there hasn't been any buzz about him doesn't mean that he won't have a good year. It just means there hasn't been a whole lot of buzz about anybody. I mean, it feels like 18 months since we had something tangible to talk about with Missouri football.
All right. Like I said earlier, I think this is before we started, I've written so many things. I've written series and forgot what series I've written. Like I'm going through using that for other things. And I'm like, oh, I wrote about this. So there's been a lot. But at SEC Media Days, I'll ask around about some of the guys that, people may have forgotten about or we don't really know about. Like somebody asked me about Kai Montgomery. Haven't heard a lick about him.
And because the other thing is it's pretty tough for there to be a breakout player on this defense. They brought back like 8 starters. I mean,
right.
Unless and at the star position, I mean, Dalen Carnell, I thought was better than Martez last year. They really like Trevez Johnson there too. But other than defensive end, I don't really know what changes on this defense. It's all the same dudes.
Yeah, there's not really much that changes. I mean, besides, like you said, defensive end. So that's what that is. There's no breakout over there.
So Jarod will be down in Nashville on Sunday and Monday. Hopefully Prince's Chicken is open for you on Sunday. I don't know if that's a spot you've hit up before or not, but that's a good one. But he'll be down there, full coverage Sunday and Monday. We will get back together sometime late next week and do a show kind of wrapping up what happens down there. And I don't know. We don't have a camp schedule yet. Hopefully you'll get one next week, but I'm going to assume late July, early August we'll be back at this weekly.
Yeah, you ready, Gabe? The off
I'm ready.
season? Are you okay? You ready? You good?
I'm ready, man.
This is year 21. Yeah, where we at?
This will be. Well, I started 20 years ago on July 31st, so I guess this would be technically the 21st season. I don't know, man. Counting's hard. I got to figure. 2003 season was my first one. So
okay, so this is my, I guess, third year being a professional journalist. How many years do I need in the game to be called a vet? How many years do I need?
Honestly, year 2 on this beat, you're getting there already. But, there's a little bit of turnover here. So anyway, but appreciate you guys hanging out with us. If you did join us live, appreciate your questions, all that. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel before you leave. You want to subscribe to the channel because that'll give you an alert when we go live. And again, we are going to start doing these things pretty regularly. The post-game show will be back for most games this year. Have a couple things that's going to change up the schedule here and there. But do a weekly show. We'll do post-game shows, all that. We'll bring Sean Williams and Drew King in at various times throughout the year to give Jarod a little bit of a break. But so do all those things. If you're listening on the podcast, which I will put together right after this, say nice things on social media, compliment the way we sound, the way we look, just our general personalities, whatever you guys want to do. So thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next time.